Hey guys, so I wanted to share with you today about some tools and tips that I used to overcome my panic attacks. So what happened was after college, I started having about 5 panic attacks a day, and it lasted about a year, and it was by far the most difficult experience I ever had to deal with, and I'm sure my parents would say the same. But I learned a ton within that year, and I wanted to share it on how I managed to overcome that. And honestly, I rarely have panic attacks now, and if I do, they're not nearly as intense. So I want to show you. I have a couple books here that were key to really conquering my panic attacks. So I want to start with this book here. This is Cognitive Behavioral Therapy in 7 Weeks by Seth Gillihan. So I'm going to put this one towards the bottom of the list, but it's still a really good tool because it helps you to identify your thoughts and basically the events that happen and identifying your thoughts about those events, and then it leads to emotions. So it helps you write out your thoughts and helps you to try to take control of your thoughts and the emotions that come from them, to try to make them not as intense and kind of change your reaction to different situations. So that's what this book is on. And like I said, it helped a little bit, but it's not like my main book that really helped me. So this book is Act Made Simple. So it's basically ACT, which is just acceptance and commitment therapy. And this therapy, what it's trying to help you do is accept the feelings and the situations that you're in. So that way, those situations and feelings and fears that would trigger your panic attacks won't trigger them, or if it does trigger something, that you're accepting those feelings and it's not being like an intense panic attack. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I had more than 5 a day for a year, and I had to go see a doctor, and I read all these different books and looked online, and it really taught me some really good techniques that aligned with what the doctor was trying to tell me. So I wanted to share what worked for me, and hopefully it will work for you as well. So these are my main 2 books. The Dare book, New Way to End Anxiety and Stop Panic Attacks, and the Dare Workbook. They're both very good books. I would say probably the workbook would be helpful like right after the original Dare book, but they're both really good books. So if you look at the Dare Workbook, it has different pictures to deal with, like, what anxiety is causing, why anxiety is causing different things with you, and about learning to accept and deal with the anxiety and the panic feelings you get. So for me, I had health anxiety, and I still struggle with it a little bit, but basically I would feel my heart beating, and I'd be like, okay, something's wrong. It would trigger a panic attack. The panic attack would get worse, your breathing would get worse, your heart rate would go up. You check your heart rate, then of course your heart rate would go up, then you'd freak out and you'd repeat. Then you start checking your heart rate more often, checking your blood pressure more often. Started doing things like, for me, going to the hospital, sitting in the parking lot because I was this deep fear of something was going wrong. Then I stopped exercising because I didn't want to get my heart rate up, and it just kept going down, 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 down. So that's why it's crucial when you start noticing that you're having these panic attacks or situations, to find help. So like I found a doctor, and I, read so many different things online and went on Reddit, asked a ton of questions, and ended up buying this book here, the Dare book. So actually my dad gave me this. He was trying to, cheer me up. So what the Dare book is trying to tell you, and it does have an app too that you can get, but the Dare book basically is trying to tell you to go towards your fear, anxiety, and panic. So for me, I jokingly told my doctor, well, I'll do, 20 push-ups a day, jokingly, because I didn't want to get my heart rate up. And he's like, that's perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. I was like, well, I'm just going to trigger my own panic attacks. And he's like, exactly, that's what you need to do. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. What's going on here? So what I ended up doing was basically training my mind and body to not fear the panic attack feelings and sensations. So the best way that I found through the DARE technique, was to go towards the anxiety and go towards the panic. So once, instead of holding back and all of a sudden, like, your eyes get big and you're like, what's that feeling? And then you start shaking, and then you tense up and you have a panic attack. Instead, you get that feeling and you beat your body to the punch. So you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have a panic attack. Let's do this. You start shaking yourself. You start causing your feelings, mess up your breath. Why not? Try to bring those on. So that way you're basically telling your body, you're like, I'm not scared of it. I'm going to trigger it myself. And, I'm going to go after it. So I started saying things like, when I would have a panic attack, I'd be like, bring it on. Come on. Is that all you've got? Come on. Let's do this. And literally my whole body would be basically shaking or spasming. And ears ringing in the middle of the night, that type of thing. And I kept doing that, and it kept getting a little easier. And I found myself, I would start triggering my own panic attacks. So once it became to the point where I didn't fear the panic as much, like if one started coming on, instead of taking like a Xanax to try to make it go away, I would trigger it right away. So instead of holding on and then having it erupt into like a 10 out of 10 panic attack, I would say, oh, you want to have a panic attack? Okay, let's do this. And it would be like a 4 out of 10. So when I started doing that, started going to the doctor, would have panic attacks in his office, which is what he had wanted me to do in the first place. And I was like, that's crazy. Started pushing myself to exercise and do the things that were causing some of my anxiety with my heart rate and things like that, get my heart rate up. Then it started getting easier, to the point where I would start triggering panic attacks for fun, which I know sounds nuts, especially if you're dealing with, tons of panic attacks. But I would start, shaking and dealing with it myself, start breathing differently, and just be like, let's do this thing. And it's just like it shows in the book, that when you start doing that, the anxiety starts running away. That's what was happening. Yeah, like look, you're not paying him any attention, so he runs away. So that is my main advice, is to get this DARE book. Get the workbook if you can, but especially get this DARE book, because, mark it up, read it multiple times. I did, I have tons of pencil, writings in here, and if I probably go back and read it, I'll probably be, there'll probably be some pretty honest information here with myself. But this book is kind of like, it's an amazing tool. Like, I've sent it to people, I've given people copies, and basically told them, look, this book, completely changed my life. And I was close as I was, going downhill in this fear of, when you start having panic attacks, and if you already have anxiety, you'll start to notice sensations you've never noticed before. So, you'll feel like things hurting in here and here. You'll feel this, you'll feel that. And instead of letting them go through your mind and leave, like a mindfulness type of thing, you hold on to them, and then it just snowballs and gets worse and worse. So this helps with letting those come and leave, and even challenging them and say, bring it on, come on, let's do this. So that is my recommendation. And after having those and working on it, I've went from, the 5 panic attacks a day, and there was always one like 3 in the morning, which were some of the most scariest ones, to not having, a handful a year, if that, and they're always, very low intensity that I just trigger myself, or I have them at work because it's a stressful environment, and I'll start feeling it. I'll be like, oh, okay, just bring it on. Come on, let's do this. I got places to be. Come on, panic. And it just allows me to go through it. And then another one of the things I wanted to show you was this. This is, I just call it a spiky mat. I don't know what I think it's called an acupuncture mat, but mine's the Pro Source. This is amazing to use, because when you start having panic attacks and you're tensing up your muscles, which if you look behind, you can't see behind me, but I have tons of creams and stuff that I was trying to use to loosen muscles during that time. But you start having cortisol build up in your system, you start ringing. What I found was this mat was like just amazing, because basically what it allows you to do, with your shirt on, with your shirt off, whatever is good for you, and it releases a lot of that cortisol. So a lot of times, even now, after a long day at work, if I feel stressed, feel like my cortisol's up a little bit, my ears are ringing a little bit, I'll lay on this mat, for 10, 15, 20 minutes and just let it like acupuncture my back and reduce that cortisol, and really get me back to a place of like, okay, I'm calm, things are good. And that and drinking water really helps. So I hope that some of these tools that I mentioned that really helped me get through that really dark year after college, hopefully will help some of you if you're dealing with panic attacks and anxiety. So thank you guys. This is Jonathan, and hopefully you can have a better day today than you did yesterday, and hopefully we can all be safe in this crazy 2020, 2021, environment. Take care.